Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am so excited and honored to be hanging out with Kristen of Cosmic Kristen Creations and the vocalist of the band Dreadmyst, a fellow music and death metal fan as well. Kristen is also a vegan, an animal lover, an artist, model, fashion designer, vocalist, and honestly, so much more. So, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you really truly do it all. So there's an abundance of topics that we could talk about today. So first, let's dive into your art and creativity because that seems to be a thread through everything you do, and seems to have always been a part of your life. So I know in a previous interview that you did, you cited that your mother and grandmother were influences in your creativity and art wise and fashion wise. So, what kind of arts did your mother and grandmother do, and when did you first start creating as well?
My mom and my grandma, like you said, and I had said in the interview, are both super crafty. My grandma was really into embroidery, so she would do these big tapestries, and usually they were of like birds, especially birds of prey. Like she loved owls and falcons, and so they were like huge, like the size of like walls and stuff like that. And there was always really funny stories about grandma needing a specific type of, like, color of something, and, like, there were times where she was really quirky and weird, so she would go and, like, cut somebody's sweater like, on the bus and, like, take it home because it was part of her, like, little, uh, something she needed to do, like, this red tail hawk tapestry or something. So, we would always go over to grandma's and do arts and crafts, and then my mom dabbled in a lot of things, like, um she would do these little, like, hand painted hair bows when we were little with, like, Disney characters, and I guess I probably get a little bit of my, like, entrepreneurship from her with doing a business because, my dad would always take us to, like, the theme parks and stuff like that, like Disneyland, or we'd go to, like, the zoo or SeaWorld, and so she would make this huge basket full of bows we'd have in the stroller where you couldn't see it, and we'd be wearing them, and then, someone would compliment like, "Oh, those bows are so cute," and my dad would go, "Oh, my wife makes them and she sells them. You wanna buy it?" And sell one, put a new bow on us, and that was just a routine throughout the day.
That is really cool and really brilliant because it's like, I got it right here. You could get it now.
Yeah, and then she just did a whole lot of other stuff. So whenever I had like a creative idea, like cuz she did a lot of sewing and stuff like that too, like she would make us purses and clothes and our Halloween costumes growing up. And when I was a teenager and started getting into like metal and punk and got really interested in alternative fashion, we would go to the thrift store and she would show me how to like, sew zippers and patches on my plaid pants, or like how to dye fabrics and stuff like that. So I think I definitely got a lot from my mom being very artistic, as far as like being able to create things and being crafty. And then as far as like art and painting goes, I've just always had a big interest in it. And my parents were always really supportive. So they always bought me art supplies and things like that. Even though we grew up without a lot of money, they were always really good at finding a way to make it work, despite like my dad is an avid recycler, so he's a big can collector, or like he always just found ways to like, make something happen.
Definitely, that's really awesome, and, it sounds like your mom was even supportive of, you getting into, like, dark alternative and metal and stuff like that, which is cool 'cause, some parents are like, "That's the devil," or
Yeah.
whatever.
I was very lucky that my parents raised me, without any religion or anything like that, and they were very open-minded with how I wanted to express myself or what I wanted to listen to. They were both hippies in the '60s and '70s, and unlike a lot of people that grew into, like, old conservative boomers, they still hold on to that. Like, they still go to Rolling Stones and Alice Cooper concerts and stuff like that, even though, they're they're getting older, dad's retired and everything, and that's just what they wanna do. They just wanna go to their concerts and go out to dinner.
I love that, that is so amazing. Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to mom and dad.
Yeah. And so, when did you start getting into metal, and what were the first bands you were introduced to, and how were you introduced to them?
So, obviously talking about how my parents were hippies, like my first introduction to like metal was probably Black Sabbath. But that was still one where it was like mom and dad's music. So even though it was my intro to metal, it was my parents' music. I feel like when I really started um like consuming it as my own music was probably, like, in, like, the late '90s, 2000s when I was in middle school. Was watching a lot of MTV, and I saw bands like Limp Bizkit and Korn and Kitty during that new metal era and Orgy, and those were the first things that I gravitated towards, and I was like, "Oh, I love this. I love how they dress. I love how the music sounds," and then, as I started listening to those bands, it was during, like, the AOL chat room days, so I would go into those, and then, you know, somebody would call me a poser for liking Korn or Slipknot or something, and then, they would be like, "This is what real metal is," and they'd send me, like, a suggestion where they were trying to make fun of me, but instead I was like, "Okay, well, let's see if it is good," and that's how I discovered bands like Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel and, like, things like that. And then, just discovering more of them through friends and stuff. That it's ironically, there was one band called Malevolent Creation that was this death metal band, and a guy who was like on the football team was like, "You like that metal stuff, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, me too." And he hands me this burnt CD, and I was like, "Oh, I never would have guessed that he liked death metal." So you just never know.
Totally, that's so cute. He's, like, obviously noticing that you like metal, and he's like, "Here,
Yeah,
here's a burnt CD."
I always
I
love
love that.
interactions like that.
Yeah, and it's so funny. I love your story because there's so many parallels and, like, signs of our time with, like, AOL chat rooms and burned CDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and new metal being, like, really big back then. Uh,
It's weird seeing it have this, like, little resurgence too, where I'm like, "Limp Bizkit's playing shows again?"
right, I know. It's fun. I feel like it's so fun. There's so many resurgences now, and it's, like, really exciting to see. And what are your thoughts about, and of course, there's no right or wrong answer, and everybody's views on this are different. But just speaking of new metal and like you're a poser, that's not real metal. And obviously, you listening to like the wide variety of different genres of metal. What do you think about that stance, especially now that we're what like 20 plus years removed from the origins of new metal?
I mean, I know a lot of people hold to their guns about gatekeeping and stuff, but I'm very anti-gatekeeper. I'm like, I don't have the energy or, like, the time to really sit there and, like, badger somebody about whether or not something is genuine or authentic or whether or not they belong in our spaces. I'm like, as long as you're not being like a bigot or like a misogynist or like, harming other people, then I'm like, I don't care. Like, you and how many times have you like been leaving a concert and they like play Britney Spears on the speakers and you see this like sea of metalheads just all like singing along? It's 2024. We don't have to pretend. I feel like sometimes gatekeeping, I feel like not necessarily everybody, but I feel like a lot of people that go really hard on it are the types where like it's like you could be yourself a little bit more. You don't have to fit in this little box of like, being true cult or being like the most knowledgeable death metal head or anything like that. But that's just my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I it does seem like well, I kind of understand, like, for the genre, why people want to,
Yeah.
be super specific, but when it comes to people and, like, "Oh, you don't belong here, you're not true this, you're not true that," it's like, I feel like sometimes people just it makes them feel important,
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah.
I agree. It's a little different when somebody's being like, "Is Dimmu Borgir, black metal or is it symphonic metal?"
Right. Yeah.
Versus like someone that's like, "This person likes Ghost, so they can't like Cannibal Corpse because they don't listen to metal, they don't understand it."
Exactly, you said it perfectly, like, it's so different bands and identifying bands versus people.
Yeah.
Exactly, there's a huge difference. And,
And
before we oh, sorry, go for it, go for it.
oh, and I was like, and there's so many bands that kind of, like, merge genres that sometimes it's hard to define some of them.
Exactly, and that's fun too, because that's how we keep pushing the boundaries of creativity and coming up with new genres. Like, if that wasn't happening, deathcore, like, wouldn't even exist
Yeah,
from, like, 20 years ago.
right?
Yeah. So, before we move on to the next question, your husband, I believe, is in the chat. Hello, Corey Allgood. And he said, can confirm Kristen's parents rule. Awesome. We love to hear it.
Thanks,
And then
son.
we and then we have Crypt Keeper MFL. Hello, stop to show some support. Well, thank you for being here. And of course,
Thanks
we
for
love the name.
supporting.
Yeah. Okay, so getting back into when you started going to thrift shops and creating DIY and kind of started making your own fashion pieces. As you mentioned, your mom was supportive of that as well. And when you first started modifying clothing, did you always envision having a business in fashion, or was it at first something you were just doing for yourself?
At first, it was definitely something I was just doing for myself. Like I said, when I was in high school, I was making clothes for myself just for fun. I did kinda, like, sometimes think about, like, I liked a lot of brands like Lip Service growing up, and I was like, "Oh, it'd be so cool to, like, design for Lip Service someday," but I never thought of, like, doing my own brand or anything like that. And, I had some old sketches and stuff like that of, "Oh, if I worked for lip service, I would, like, make this or that." And then what inspired me to start thinking about doing it as a business was kind of what inspired me to start, like, specifically modifying, like, band T-shirts a lot was, I'd see I saw a couple of designers on eBay, way back in the day before, like, Etsy was a thing and all that, and, it was designers like Toxic Vision, Shrinkle, Smarmy Clothes, and, remembering her face and her outfits. Hollywood Renegade was the other one. But, those were some designers that I saw, and I wanted to buy the clothes, and then I kept, like, getting outbid, and then I was like, "Man, they're probably making a lot of money with this," and, like, I wonder if I could make it myself. So then I started working with my mom a little bit on it, and then when I moved out and I moved in with my best friend, Julia, we both got matching sewing machines, and we would just, like, drink beer and listen to records and, like, sew all night, and then eventually that turned into not in that immediate time, I was still sewing for myself for a long time, um, but then I started, like, doing these, like, hand-painted wine glasses because the excuse I always made when people were like, "You should sell this," was I was like, "Oh, I don't know if anybody would wanna pay what would be worth, like, charging it, so I'll just make them for myself." And then, I started selling the hand-painted wine glasses and, like, canvas paintings on Etsy because I was like, "Well, I've sold canvas paintings before and stuff like that, and, like, the wine glasses are cheap because, wine glasses are inexpensive and it's just the cost of the paint." And those started selling well, and then I was like, "You know what? I'll try it with a few band T-shirts. I'll just go for ones that I got from a thrift store." And then eventually I realized those were selling well, and I was like, "Why don't I just buy new band T-shirts so I can support the bands?" And it just evolved into what it is today.
That is amazing. And it sounds really fun. Also, like, that sounds like a dream. Like, I don't sew, but just just like you and your roommate together, drinking, sewing together, listening to music. That sounds so fun, honestly.
Yeah, Julia actually sells a lot of her, band T-shirt creations too, so if anybody wants to
Oh,
check out
nice.
raunchy gear, I'll drop it in the comments on this later, but, she makes amazing stuff as well. She's been doing this as long as I have, and she also always makes sure to sew band T-shirts from official merch, so you know that you're supporting the artist too.
Awesome. I love that aspect as well. And yeah, we can definitely put the links in the description. I'm sometimes bad at remembering to do that, but I'll make a point
I
to make sure
completely
yeah,
understand
you
that.
do that. Um, so, something else that's been like a huge thread and theme and seems to have been a big influence in your life is loving animals and being vegan. So, when did you first become vegan and have you eaten meat since?
I went vegan in 2016 in November, and ironically, it was on World Vegan Day, November 1st. It was just a coincidence, but it kinda makes it very easy to remember because 'cause I'm like, whenever it comes up, I'm like, "Oh, how long have I been vegan for?" So, oh my I don't have my phone, so I don't know how to math that right now.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, almost
Right?
10 years now.
Yeah.
I haven't eaten meat since then, unless you count, like, you know how sometimes, like, you get, food from somewhere and you take a bite, and you're like, "Ah, they put meat in it," but I don't really count that one because 'cause I'm like, it's not like I actively went to go eat it, and I'm not, like, wolfing down the whole burrito or anything like that. But, yeah, the the thing that inspired me to go vegan, I think it was a lot of different things. I always grew up loving animals. Like I said, my parents, like, they knew that I had a love for animals, so they were really great about, like, letting me have a lot of pets growing up, and then they would take me places like obviously now that as a vegan, I know things about SeaWorld and zoos and stuff like that, but they took me to a lot of those places when I was growing up, and it really instilled my interest and my love for them. I would watch a lot of nature documentaries. So once I saw documentaries about what was happening to animals that we use for food and things like that, I just started to, like, see it every time I would have it, on my plate, so it it only made sense to cut it out, and it's just been really easy to do because I grew up in San Diego where there's a lot of options to eat that way, and it's also, the day and age of the internet, so it's really easy to be like, "Oh, I don't know what to make for dinner, let me find a video or a recipe."
Amazing. Yeah, I was actually vegan for a while. I think 5 years, or vegan vegetarian on and off.
Uh-huh.
I won't get into how I stopped, but I know what you mean. After not eating meat for so long and you accidentally eat something with it, you know right away. Like, you could
Yeah.
taste it. It's really a,
Mhm.
a thing. So that's amazing. Major props to you for that. And following through with your beliefs. Cattle Decapitation is one of the bands that we both have a love for. When did you first hear Cattle Decapitation, and were their themes and animal rights and stuff a big appeal for you as a vegan, or did you get into them before or after being vegan?
So I first discovered them way before I was vegan, back when, like, I used to make fun of vegans because I thought it was edgy and cool. Um, I discovered them because one of my friends had a a little keepsake from their Humanure release because I grew up in San Diego, so they were local to us, and it was toilet paper that had the cattle decapitation logo in a wrapper around it, and so immediately it caught my eye. I asked him about it, and then he's like, "Yeah, it's this band that's like a vegan grindcore band." And at first I was like, "Mm." And then he's like, "Yeah, they sing these disgusting songs about, like, what if people did to humans what we do to animals," because that was very much the theme in their work, and it was very grotesque. So that caught my eye, and I listened to it, and I thought it was cool. And they weren't like one of my, like, top favorite bands back then. It was just, that it was that, oh, this is, like, gruesome and disgusting, and it's fun in that way. And then I rediscovered them. ar- I heard, like, things here and there. Like, obviously everybody heard forced gender reassignment because that video was that video was a video. It and so so I heard that one, but I didn't do, like, a deep dive or anything. And then when Death Atlas came out, it just, like, grabbed my attention and just held on to it. So once that came out, that was when I was vegan. And then also just musically, it's such an incredible album that hearing one song when it just popped up in my feed, I wanna say it popped up on, because I'd been following indie merch for a while, and then I was like, "I have to listen to this whole album," and then I listened to that whole album a lot that year. It was a big on repeat. So, definitely, I think it was a combo of the music being good and also being able to relate to the themes of it, but they'd been on my radar for a long time. It's just all of a sudden I woke up and I was like, "Man, this band that sounds completely different than when they first started."
That's so true, and I love that. Thank you for sharing that whole, like, arc of your experience with them, because it's so true. It's not always like a band that's now one of your favorites. It's not like they were from the moment you heard them,
Yeah.
and Yeah, there's been so much evolution with them anyway. But I just, oh man, it's so funny. Forced Gender Reassignment, amazing song. Like, just everything about it is awesome. But yeah, the music video, I remember watching it for the first time with a friend who was not a metalhead, and we were on public. I was
Oh,
like, yeah, I was like, this just dropped, and we were both like really high, just like watching it. And I think he
oh
was
my god,
traumatized.
that's
Yeah. Oh,
oh,
good
that is
times.
great.
Yeah.
That is a fantastic story.
Thank you. But yeah, the video honestly, from what I remember, I was like, "Is this real? This looks real."
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. But yeah, thank you again for sharing. So who are some of your other current favorite bands today?
Um, I definitely really like, this is a far, like, jump from Cattle Decapitation, but I love Unleash the Archers. Are you familiar with them?
No,
They're
never heard them.
they're a power metal band, so that's why it's, like, such a far jump from Cattle Decapitation, but they're super, like, technically proficient, and they do these albums that are, like, these big, like, fantasy stories, and it's just really fun, and their vocalist is, she's a female power metal vocalist, but compared to, I never really got into a lot of bands like Nightwish and things like that, where it's very, like, soft and delicate even though they have these powerful voices. She's more like a Bruce Dickinson or like, um, I'm blanking on the guy from Halloween, but, like, she's more like that, like, it's big, it's powerful, it's in your face, like, so I really like them. I definitely I always get a lot of shit for this, but I like Arch Enemy still, and everybody's like, "Oh, I don't like them anymore now that Angela left," but I still love them. And then,
Wait, what did I miss? What happened? Why is everybody
I don't know, I just always feel like the comments, like, in their posts are always like, "Oh, Arch Enemy was better with Angela, Elisa ruined the band," and I'm like, "You know that there's, like, other members in the band that write music in here too, it's not just her that why they sound how they sound," and honestly, I still feel like it just sounds like good mellow death. But so I like them a lot, and then, there's this band that I really like, Summoning the Lich. I discovered them because my husband, their vocalist just dropped the video of one of their songs on Discord, and he's like, "You have to check this out." And I was like, "Okay, this is my new current obsession." But those are, like, some of my top picks that are always, like, super heavy in my rotation.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Because again, I just love hearing, what people are listening to, because it's always, like, different, and then even like you said, even in what you shared, there's, like, a variety there as well, so I love it, and, before we go on to the next question, thank you, Jeff Jones. Thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate you being here and really, really appreciate the support. I feel like I need some graphic to show my appreciation because it really does mean a lot, so that's coming, so thank you. And then,
I'm like, "I'll just grab something from my desk." Here we go. Oh,
whoa!
camera right, left, there
I
we
know,
go.
like, where is
I'm
it?
like, "Oh, there we go."
Oh, yay! That's for you, Jeff Jones, thank you. And, he said, "Awesome," I think while you were talking about Arch Enemy, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, thank you again. We love you being here, so thank you for
Thank
being
you.
part of the conversation and community. Amazing. So, let's see, where are we? Uh, yes, so I see you started posting to Instagram back in 2013. Ever since you started posting, you were already sharing various forms of art, painting on clothing and wine glasses, as you mentioned. I also saw some jewelry and some clothing modification. So, were you already selling art at that point in 2013?
Yes, I've been selling art for a while. Like, when I was in high school, I would, go ahead and, like, kinda, like, sell drawings and stuff like that at school, and I used to do a lot of pet portraits, so I had been selling art, and then I went to college and got my degree with, an emphasis in painting and printmaking, so I have my bachelor's in fine arts, so I've done a few, like, gallery shows and sold art in that way, um and then, like I was talking about, like, I kinda started on platforms like Etsy doing, like, stuff that I was like, "I think that this would probably sell better," so I kinda started with stuff where I was like, I've already sold paintings. Paintings will probably sell, the wine glasses and stuff like that. And then when I started doing stuff more like what I real like, I've always liked selling stuff like art and the wine glasses, but like painting, like large canvases and sewing clothes is probably like my 2 favorite things to make. So, I think when I started to put more of myself in it and not try to predict what people wanted, it actually worked out better and it sold better.
That's so great to hear, and it's funny how I'm sure that's not always 100% the case, but it's amazing how often you actually hear that from people. Like, once I stopped caring what people wanted and started doing what I really enjoyed, it started working out better.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when I first started doing, like, a lot of the band T modifications, I was always
Mhm.
very conscious of, like, trying to stick with, safe, popular bands, like, it's gotta be Slipknot, Avenged Sevenfold, or, like, classic rock bands like Rolling Stones and Black Sabbath, and then when I started occasionally being like, I'll throw in a Cattle Decapitation one, I'll put an aborted one in there, then all of a sudden I was like, "That sold a lot faster." And I think too, part of that is being able to stand out a little bit more. Like when you go on Etsy, if you go and you search for a modified Slipknot shirt, you're gonna get a whole bunch of results versus if, you're looking for a Crypta shirt, you might get like 1 or 2.
That's so real. Yes, oh my gosh, that is really exciting, and, how, has your art, business, and sales evolved since then? I'm sure in various ways.
I definitely obviously I have like higher gross sales than I used to do. Just because I've been able to like grow on these platforms and stuff. And then I've also, developed ways where like I've been better about managing like what are my cost of everything that I'm doing and how should I be charging? And then also finding things like um I Etsy charges like a lot of fees and things like that. So switching to a platform like Big Cartel because I noticed a lot of my traffic was coming from my Instagram and my other social media. I was like, well, I don't really need Etsy to like push me for people to see me anymore. So what am I paying them a fee for? So doing things like that and just paying a flat rate for a Big Cartel versus like having to pay for Etsy has been good. And then also I've gotten a lot of chances to network with people and stuff like that. Um where like people have reached out for stage wear or where a band has been like, hey, we really like what you're doing, like, we're going to share your stuff, so then their fans see it, so I'm more likely to sell the item. So a lot of it has come out of those sort of interactions. And another cool thing is like obviously you follow me, you've noticed that like, and since cattle is one of my favorites, I post a lot of cattle stuff that I was modifying. And eventually Travis had reached out and said like, at the end of every tour we always have all these shirts that have like holes in them and that are like faded from like being like clipped up to the displays or like being out in the sun at festivals. Like, do you want to just buy them at like a discounted rate since you're going to sew them? And I usually just sell them on my Depop, but like they have holes in them. So like sometimes they sit on there a while and I think it'd be cooler to like have you do something with them. So we've been doing that for a while and I always have a massive box of cattle decapitation merch to work with.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's also
amazing.
kind of fun because, sometimes I have to, like, look at it and I'm like, "Okay, how do I work with the holes in this?" Because sometimes they're in weird places or sometimes there's, like, stains and things like that, and I'm like, "Alright, I gotta really visualize what's gonna happen with this."
Yeah, and I love that. Well, to me, it's like a like, it sounds like a challenge, and
Yeah.
it makes it something unique that maybe it wouldn't have been before.
Yeah, I did one where it was, like, this big dramatic cloak, from the Death Atlas record, and it was so disheveled, and it was a long sleeve, and I was like, "Why don't I just really lean into the fact that it's all tattered?" And so I had a big pile of like scrap t-shirts from like when, I cut off the sleeves or like sometimes I'll also if the shirt doesn't have a back design, I'll back it with like a stretch fabric instead so it fits better or it's more comfortable. So I had all these like backs of t-shirts and I used that to like do all the accent fabrics on it and stuff. So it was a very upcycled project.
That was really beautiful, like, really beautiful piece. Did you keep that one or did you sell that one
I s
also?
I sold that one, and the only reason I didn't keep it because I was like, "Man, I really wanna keep this," is I have a Death Atlas hoodie that I really love, but it is falling apart, like, the zipper's broken, there's holes in the sleeves, and I'm like, "I'm gonna make myself one out of that, and that means I could sell this one," and I was really happy because the customer who bought it is, like, a huge cattle fan, and she's also vegan, and she just tagged me in, like, a photo where she had one of her photographer friends, like, shoot this really dramatic picture of her in it, and I was like, "Okay, it went to a good home."
Definitely. Oh, that is so amazing and beautiful. Yeah, and your promos are awesome too, which we could definitely talk about that a little more. And for anyone watching, Kristen's link are in the description. So if you want to check out her Instagram as we're talking, so you could see some of these pieces as well, all of those links are in the description, including the link to her store where you can actually buy these modified band merch items. Um, awesome. Amazing. So, I see that you're participating and you talked a little bit about, Etsy, and why you'd rather work with, Big Cartel because Etsy has a ton of fees and there's not really, like, a reason for it. But it sounds like there's, like, some larger protests going on, or at least, from the links on your link tree, where you were like it said something like, "I'll start using Etsy again," when they treat their sellers better. So, is there, like, an official protest going on? And if and when would you return to Etsy?
I don't know if there's an official one at the moment. I know, there was kind of a movement where a lot of people started leaving the platform. Some of the big key points why people have been, upset with Etsy as a platform is initially it started where it was the best, kinda deal for if you were making handmade stuff. Everything on there was handmade, and it was a simple, like, 20 cents per listing for 3 months, and so it was very, like, affordable and, having that many people on the platform, that 20 cents a listing adds up, especially, some people have a lot of listings. Um, and then they started taking percentages off each sale, which they didn't initially do. And at a certain point, I don't remember what I want to say it was almost up to 20%, or something obscene like that. And one of the things I could be wrong on that though. It's been a long time since I've been on the platform and maybe I'm just being dramatic. Maybe it's only like 5%. But one of the things that really got under my skin when I was using the platform is during one of their fee increases that was a pretty hefty one, immediately afterwards they implemented this program where they were trying to tell everyone um that buyers were more likely to buy something if you offered free shipping. So, in order to be seen in the algorithm, they would place you higher if you offered free shipping. And they just said, oh, just add it into your pricing. And then they raise their fees. So, they don't take a percentage out of your shipping total, but they take a percentage out of your sale. So, they encouraged you to pretty much take more of a chunk and lose money on shipping on top of that. So that was another big annoyance. I've also had other friends that use the platform where um like my sister's boyfriend does cosplay. His company is called Sinister Props if anybody wants to check it out. He does really cool stuff. But he had he also, like, posts a lot of stuff online, and people message him about custom orders, and he usually just, like, directs them to Etsy for the sale and all that stuff, and he had gotten a message about doing a customization on a lightsaber, and then, they made the sale on, Etsy and everything, and Etsy charged this marketing fee because allegedly the sale was made from Etsy marketing to this person, but the person was like, "That was never" the customer said, "That was never marketed to me. I found you on social media." And so, it's just little sneaky things like that. And then the last point is the platform has really moved to where they've allowed a lot of people to just drop ship on there. And if you're not familiar with the concept, it's kind of where it's mass produced things, but people are disguising them as a handmade item. So if you do like a Google reverse image search, you'll see that there's, the exact same product on Amazon and on eBay and from multiple Etsy sellers, and they've done nothing to combat that. I've even seen where drop shippers are making knockoffs of popular designers I follow, like Painkiller Clothing or Toxic Vision, and using their own photos to market that, and Etsy does nothing about it, even when you report the accounts. So it's kind of where everybody's getting buried in this platform from people who are able to offer fast fashion drop shipping options at cheaper prices. And everybody who's making handmade stuff is just getting dropped in the algorithm, or they're having customers who don't understand because from the customer's perspective, it looks like, why is this handmade item $10 but yours is $50?
Wow, yeah, that's really messed up on so many levels. So I don't blame you for leaving Etsy, but I love that you have like kind of the protest of them in your
A
link tree
statement on
so
there.
people know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever go back to the platform unless they do a complete 180, which I don't think they're gonna do, because I mean, now they have enough money where they're on, like, I feel like I heard they did a Super Bowl commercial. So,
Oh wow.
it's
Yeah.
working out well for them, I guess.
Yeah, corporate, selling out all of those things.
Yep.
But and then that's so sneaky what you said about the okay, they're like, "Don't charge shipping," but then they get to charge you for whatever the item is, so it's just another way for them to make more. It's so messed up.
Yeah.
It's so messed up, but I'm glad that you were able to find an alternative that works way better, so shout out to, uh wait, where is it? Big Cartel.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Bigcartel.com.
they're pretty much like a good platform if you wanna sell stuff, but you kinda have no idea about, like, web design or anything like that. It's less of a good option if you don't already have a following, because it's not a platform where you go on there and you search for it. It's kinda where you need an audience. So, sometimes things like Etsy can be a good, like, start off point to get your work seen, but the hard part, like I said, is there's a lot of drop shippers, so you would have to have something that is unique enough to where you wouldn't have a lot of competition.
That makes sense, and that's good sound advice.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and before we go into the next questions, just looking at the chat, thank you again, Jeff Jones. Seriously,
Thank
uh,
you.
I'm like, where's the celebration? I need like a celebration prop coming in the future. But seriously, it really does mean a lot.
Thank
So
you,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah. And thank you for being here. Oh, and we are also honored that Manolith Official is in here, a progressive deathcore band. This is Brody from Manolith Official. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I haven't checked
Uh,
them out. I'm gonna have to add that to the list.
oh yes, they're so cool. And then Jeff Jones said that he just found you on Instagram. So yay, yay for that. Corey Allgood said, "Us music nerds are feeling the burn from Etsy too. They bought Reverb, and it's just as rough for buying and selling gear." Oh, that's terrible. I didn't know that. Well, time to find another alternative for that too.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody's good at, like, making apps and things like that, there's an open market where Etsy failed.
Nice. Hear that, everyone? And then Jeff Jones said, "Sorry about Etsy," and then we just have love for Manolith.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is about Etsy, and, I've always been very adaptable, so I managed to work around it, and, I always give advice to other people that are, like, struggling with their small businesses and things like that, if I can think of ways to help.
Awesome. Well, the advice is definitely helpful. Um, I'm sure. And now that bigcartel.com is the main place where you sell your clothing, I see that you sell out really quickly on most collections. And I do see that you currently have a few things up, including Vulvodinia two-piece, which I was looking at. I might have to buy. Um, so
Ooh.
yeah, I love it. So are there any other places where you sell different types of art, or is a Big Cartel where people can find everything from you?
Big Cartel is the best place. That's where I sell most of, my stuff. Like, I've sold, like, a few, like, old clothes on, like, Depop and stuff like that, but, like, that one's usually just, like, it can range from something that's, like, something pre-bought in my closet that I never wear anymore to something that I might have made when I first started, and I'm like, "I'm not gonna put this on my Big Cartel because it's used, and it's also when I first started sewing, so I'm less, like, comfortable with that." Like, being like, "Oh, yeah," because somebody might not understand why the quality is different. And then, I've done a few in-person vending events. Like I haven't done one in a while, but every once in a while, like I've done like, like an art walk where I have a rack of clothing and some paintings up. And then I just dropped 3 pieces of art at our friends in Replications new space. They also do like a company called Black Bomb Entertainment, where they host like festivals and stuff like that for bands to play. And they also do a clothing brand. And recently they just opened up a cafe and retail space. And so I have 3 paintings up in there that are going to be for sale. So if anybody's in the Sonora area, they can go check that out and buy a piece of original art from me.
That sounds so cool. That sounds like a really awesome venue. And yay, congrats.
Yeah, they're super nice people. They're really sweet. We've gone out and seen their live shows, and then, my
Oh,
husband and I also recently started, like, a production company where we're doing, like, live photography and music videos and promo photos for bands and stuff like that. So, I've been plugging Stageware a little bit on there. We've mostly
mhm.
been posting live photos just because that's the stuff that we've made the most of. Um, but, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, we made a music video for them, which was really cool. So you kind of can see some stuff that I offer on there as well. It's at All Good Media Productions on Instagram. If you guys want to check it out,
Nice, and if that's not in the links yet, I'll definitely make sure to, add it there as well. But yeah, you really do like, I wasn't kidding at the beginning, you do so much. I don't even know how you keep track of everything, but we're gonna get into that a little later.
my
Um
husband calls me a collector of hobbies, and it's a very accurate statement.
That's amazing, and you're so, like, committed though, because I feel like I mean, there's a range of hobby, right? And there's nothing wrong with being, like, a dabbler in hobbies, but you're just, like, all in, which is amazing,
My
seriously.
toxic trait is I think I can do everything. I can't crochet to save my life or knit to save my life, though. I tried that once and I'm horrible at it, just for the record.
Oh, well, you make up for that in a lot of many, many, many other areas.
And it gives me a lot of respect for people that are good at that.
Oh. So speaking of things that you do, you also have a YouTube channel, which you
Yes, I
started
do.
posting to in 2013. Mostly it started off as DIY videos showing how you made your custom painted items and clothing. Last year, you started uploading music where you were doing vocals. So when did
Yep.
you start doing meth, not meth? When did
Whoa.
you,
Not yet.
not
Hopefully not
yet?
ever.
Yeah. When did you start doing death metal vocals, and, was there any particular resource that helped you learn?
I wanna say I'm so bad at dates. I feel like it was like 2 to 3 years ago, maybe longer, that I started doing, metal vocals. I I kinda secretly always wanted to be a vocalist, but I originally, like, growing up, always thought that people were just good at singing or growling, and I just wasn't. And then I stumbled upon, some YouTube videos about it, and I was like, "Oh, maybe I could do this." And then I tried recording vocals. I tried, like, covering, an old Arch Enemy song, and then when I heard my vocals, I'm not gonna lie, I cried. I sounded like 2020 Chris Barnes. It was so bad. Like, I mean, minus the E's, but it sounded like Chris Barnes. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, a lot of the people that are doing the YouTube videos on like how to do these do lessons. I'm gonna invest in myself and I'm gonna do lessons. So I kind of watched a lot of the creators and I landed on picking Mark from Cardavox Academy, and he is phenomenal. Like, I cannot say enough good things. Like, we started with doing fry vocals, and then we moved on to false chord, and, like, I would not sound like I do without his help, or it would have taken a lot longer. So, I highly, highly recommend him.
That is
And
beautiful. Yes. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, you're good. Yeah, and he's also just really easy to work with because, like, when you first start I don't know why, but, like, for me, like, because before I used to, play a little bit of bass, but it never really stuck because, like, it just didn't I always wanted to be a vocalist. I just never admitted it. But, I wouldn't get as embarrassed playing bass or practicing bass in front of people, but, like, doing vocals is kinda scary, because you feel like you're gonna sound stupid, and you do, it's just part of the process, but he was really good at, like, making you feel, like, comfortable or not feeling like you were gonna like or like you sounded terrible, or even if you did sound terrible, he was very much making you feel like you're not gonna sound terrible forever.
That really is beautiful, and there's so many layers there and great lessons in that, from, you know, if you start something, you're usually, like, almost never gonna be good right off the bat, like,
Yeah,
everything takes practice, and that's
it
such a
does.
great lesson to share, and then I love how you said, sounding stupid is part of the process, like and and I feel like that holds a lot of people back, like, not just from vocals, but from so many things in
Oh, for
life.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sucking is the first step at getting sorta good at something.
Such great, great, great advice, and very applicable to so many things. And before we continue, I just want to say hello to Ruby, who is one of the
Hello,
members
Ruby.
of the channel. Yay! Thank you for being here, Ruby. And Ruby actually has a YouTube
Oh,
channel
thank you.
where she shows many of her. She does like very creative like dances and stuff. So
Oh,
definitely
that's really
recommend,
cool.
yeah,
That's
checking
something
her
I'm
out.
not good at, so I always admire a good dancer.
Yeah. Same. And again, you're good at so many things. So, again, one of those things where if you wanted to, you probably could get good at. Like we
Exactly.
were saying. Yeah.
Anybody can do the thing, if you wanna do it, just do it.
Yes. And just work through the part where you suck. That's like usually the hardest part for people.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. And so you went from 3 years ago, what like admitting to yourself you want to be a vocalist, going through the rough process of because I know what you mean about like you hurt yourself and you cried because when you want something and then you feel like, "Oh, there's no way I it could be me."
Mhm.
That could be an emotional thing, but then you work through that, got a coach, which is another solid piece of advice for anyone who wants to learn to do anything.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so, you gave some good, shout outs there for anyone else who might be wanting to do death metal vocals. And you are now the vocalist in your own band, uh, Dreadmyst. Sorry, I keep
No, you're
calling
good.
everything Meth Dad. Dreadmyst.
Words are hard
Uh,
sometimes.
yeah, they are. Which is a technical death metal band. And it looks like you released your first demo on YouTube about 3 months ago. So, when did you all form Dreadmist, and what are you looking forward to for the rest of the year band-wise?
So it kinda started between my husband and I and his friend that he had made on Discord years ago, and then when we initially lived in San Diego, and then when we moved up here, we were like, "Oh, we live closer to him." And then we started talking about forming a band. Sorry, hold on one sec.
Yes. Everybody
Hydration is
hydrate.
important.
Yeah.
But, we started talking about forming a band, and we all kinda got together and started working on some songs, and, uh, we unfortunately, Berto ended up leaving the band just because he had some personal stuff that he had to work on, and he's kind of a couple hours out from us, so, like, getting together for practice was a little bit, like, hectic on him schedule-wise and all that. So, right now it's just me and my husband, but we're looking for the rest of our members, and, we decided to just put the song out there so we could find more members, and we're still in the works of finishing up our first EP, so we're working on fine-tuning the rest of the songs and all that at the moment.
How exciting, and how long has it, have you been working on this, like, whole album?
I'm trying to think. I feel like we started last year, so I think it's just been in the works for a little bit over a year.
That is really, amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing, who joins you and
Me
what's
too.
next for your band. Yeah. Um So looking at your link tree, I see you also have an OnlyFans page.
I do.
Um, yes, shout out to you. And in the description, which I love, is just a death metal babe with a big ass. I love it. What more do you need to know?
Yeah, I know. I was making the bio and I was like, "Oh, all right, what do people need to know?" And I'm like, those are the key points. I like death metal
Absolutely.
and I definitely carry my weight in my butt.
Nice. So where was I? Uh, I'm like, I
Got
lost where I
distracted by
was.
butts.
Yeah. Oh, there's no good word for that because like there's distraction, but what's the word for when you get distracted by a butt? uh, when did you start your OnlyFans page, and what has that experience been like for you?
I think it's been almost 2 years now, and the experience has overall been pretty good. It's, like, I haven't had a lot of issues with people, like, violating boundaries or being disrespectful on there, which was kind of a surprise because I was like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm about to, like, open a whole can of worms and stuff," and it's really weird. On Instagram, you have people, like, send you dick pics all the time, but then on OnlyFans, people are like, "Can I?" And then I'm like, "I'd prefer if you did," and they're like, "That's okay." Like, some people do, like, accept images like that for money and stuff like that, and I pretty much have just been, like, where I was like, I realized at a certain point, I'm like, people wanna see me without clothes on or in lingerie, so I was like, "Why don't I just put that out there and monetize it?" And it's been really good because, if I don't wanna do something or I don't wanna make a certain type of content, people are generally pretty well behaved on there, which was really surprising to me. 'Cause that has not always been my experience in real life or on certain areas of the internet. Um, like, obviously, you hear a lot of, stories where people talk about, like, making all this money or people who make all this money on it, and I don't feel like it hasn't not been financially lucrative, but it also hasn't been this thing where I'm like, "Wow, I got rich because I made an OnlyFans." And I think that's one of the things people, um, who talk about starting one don't, realize is, like, it's if you don't like putting in work on social media, you're not gonna like that platform and do well on it. Like, part of it is, do people wanna see what you wanna put out there? But a lot of it is, how do you market yourself, and how consistent are you gonna be with posting and making things that people came there to see? Um, and then I think another thing that people should consider with it is which was a consideration for me and why I did it, is you have to realize that someone whoever you might be worried about seeing it can see it. Like, even if you have it hidden and all that stuff or don't show your face, there's still a possibility somebody could find out that's you. And like I said, like, I've had parents who were very open-minded. My friends have always been open-minded. So I've kept a circle of people that I knew it wouldn't bother me if somebody realized that I was doing that. So that was a consideration for me. Trying to think of any other points to bring up about it.
Yeah, no, that's all very real, and again, really good advice. Because it's like one of those things. It sounds like you have to fully accept like all aspects of it,
Yes.
and understand all
Yeah.
aspects of it, before really getting into it, with false expectations or not thinking of any possible repercussions. But I'm glad that it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I feel like I could probably monetize it a little bit more, but I kinda weighed, like, the pros and cons of it and, advertising things like that on your socials. Like, I don't have my settings to, like, privacy or 18 plus, and I certainly don't want to, accidentally market towards, people who are underage and things like that, because that's definitely gives me the ick. Um, and then there's also, a lot of accounts get shut down because of that. And my clothing business is kind of my favorite of all the thing, and doing like music and art. Those are my favorite things. So if I wound up losing my audience because I was pushing my OnlyFans more, I'd be upset.
That totally makes sense. But I feel like with your clothing business and you modeling a lot of your clothing, especially like the one pieces and stuff, I feel like people could
Mhm.
get a good sense of like, okay, this is someone I want to see more of. And then you could be like,
Yeah, it's
you
the
can.
preview.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I've always said, like, the way that I kinda market it is if somebody's looking for it, they're gonna find it.
Yeah.
So, I don't necessarily have to put it as much out there.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I love that you've been able to do so many different things that, have been a good experience. And like you said, uh, help you as an artist survive. Because I'm sure,
Yeah.
like you said, this isn't like your main source of income, but it definitely sounds like it helps.
Yeah, it's kind of the money that I've been, like, stashing away in my savings, because it's 2024 and who has a savings anymore? So that one's been my, like, well, I just have it set to where every time I cash out, whatever my balance is, it just goes into my savings account. So, helps out during tax season because they'll get you for that one, and then, also just, in case I have a bad month or something like that, it's there. Or if there's an emergency, I got pets and stuff. So if somebody's got a big vet bill, then I'm like, oh, time to dip into the OnlyFans fund.
Really smart. You've given a lot of really solid advice here today. Um, Yes. And so you, as I mentioned so many times, because it's true, yeah, you really do a lot. And I know you've gone through some hard times and have previously shared dealing with depression and anxiety due to past trauma.
Mhm.
So how do you accomplish so much while managing your mental health? Do you have any rituals, daily or weekly, that helps you stay on track and give you the space that you need to create and accomplish everything?
Yeah, so I'm definitely a person that thrives in a routine. So I kind of set a lot of like, this is what I do every day. Oh, was that your kitty? Oh.
No, it's
Oh,
like just a piece of clothing that
oh,
fell.
I just saw movement and
Yeah.
I was like, "Is there a pet? Let me see the baby."
Aw.
But, yeah, I definitely have a lot of, like, routines that I do every day that kinda keeps me from, like, kinda falling into a pit when I'm having a bad day or an anxious day. Having my pets definitely helps a lot, like, my cat is, she she's the one that's the best emotional support animal. She's like she could just sense if you're, like, having a bad day, and she'll, like, get this close to your face and just sniff you, and I swear she can smell you're upset, and she'll just, like, purr on you, and my dogs get me up and walking and going outside to get, some sun. Um, it definitely helps that I have a good support system too with my husband. Like, I know that if I'm, like, having a breakdown, like, I can talk to him. I've also, gone to therapy, and I use a lot of the tools from there, like, just remembering to, like one of the things that I really like that, one of my therapists told me was to be gentle with yourself, and when you catch that internal voice that's, giving you, like, all these negative thoughts, like, "Oh, you should have done this," or "You fucked up this," or, "You did this wrong." You need to take that voice and go like, "Okay, like, how would that voice talk to, like, a six-year-old that was in a similar situation?" Or, like, how would you talk to somebody's, like, child? And talk to yourself like that when you hear your voice getting negative. Like, you wouldn't go and tell a child like, "Man, you really fucked up that math test, kid. You're gonna fail at life, little Billy," So
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, some people do.
some people
That's
do,
why the
but,
rest of us have issues. Sorry.
yeah. Oh, yeah. But, I guess I should rephrase that. How would a good parent speak to a child? Or how do you wish you were spoken to as a child? Right.
Totally.
Is probably, like, the good way to rework your internal voice, and then just things like I try to have a regular exercise routine. Like, I used to have it where I was more obsessive about it because it was more based on, like, how I wanted to look, and I've learned to, like, let go of that because, like, you're if you have that mindset, you're never gonna be happy with yourself. So now exercise is just for my mental health and so that I'm able to physically do things. So I have specific days of the week where I'm like, okay, even if I don't want to, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna be active. Um, and that definitely helps with my mental health. And I'm a massive advocate of a planner. I write everything down, I make lists, and I know that my ADHD husband is, probably hearing this going like, "Lists do not work for me." So, everything that I'm saying probably might not work for you. Um, I think a lot of it is if you have the access to therapy, like that's a great thing to do and, use the tools that your therapist gives you. And if not, I guess try to do a deep dive on the internet and just try to utilize other coping skills that people use and see which ones give you that you can commit to consistently and that give you the results you want. And it doesn't always work, you know? I still have days where, like, I fall into a little pit of despair and I'm crying in my sweatpants to my husband and having a bad day, so even though, you see me and I'm always, like, all done up on social media, I still have bad days where I feel like I can't do anything and that maybe I should just give up on everything.
Wow, well, thank you for sharing that because it's very obvious even from afar and for someone who in reality like I don't like know you as a person, but even I can see how much you do and like how successfully you do things and things that you enjoy, which also probably um also helps to actually like keep doing them so you actually enjoy them. Um
Yeah,
but
that was
yeah,
actually. Oh, sorry, go
oh sorry,
ahead.
no, you go for it.
Yeah, that was one of the things too that I learned in therapy is to do things that are pleasurable for yourself, and also to celebrate your accomplishments. So in a way, like creating is a constant way to be like celebrating accomplishments and doing things that I like.
Definitely. Sounds like a huge game changer. And then Corey gave hearts when you were
Oh.
talking and said deletes comment about planners. And then Ruby said, "Yay for a list. For lists and therapy is good. Shouldn't ever be frowned upon." Yeah, definitely. And like Kristen said, different things work for different people. But it's solid advice overall. Just to you have to try things to find what
Mhm.
works for you. Absolutely. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so I definitely appreciate you being open with all of that. And you've given so much great advice already, but is there any advice that you would like to give to creatives out there or anybody watching?
I would definitely say for creative people that are trying to do something, obviously, just do it, like, even if it's terrible at first, you'll get better at it the more consistent you are, you can reach out to people that you see that are doing things like what you wanna do and ask them for advice. Granted, not everybody's gonna be as receptive to it. Some people are really busy and don't have time to respond to a whole bunch of stuff or might not be as open to, like, sharing their secrets. I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, "Oh, if you wanna know something, I'll give you all the information that my little brain has because 'cause I'm like, I already stretch myself thin schedule-wise, so I always think that there's more room for creative people, like, in this world, and I like to encourage people because it makes me happy, and I want other people to be happy. Um, and I definitely say that, like, obviously nowadays, the big thing with being a creative person is unfortunately you also have to be an influencer, whether you like it or not. Um, so I guess the big thing is like figuring out, how you're going to market yourself or what you're selling on social media and what platform works best for you and how to get the most amount of people seeing and, consuming what you're putting out there. And I feel like probably the best advice I could give people, because I always see people trying to figure out how to hack the algorithm, whether it's some kind of hashtag or some specific type of post, and, the thing that I've found works the best is, you get what you put in. So, I've noticed that if I engage with other creators and I try to support other creators, they're more likely to reciprocate. Or if I engage with people who might be potential customers or people who listen to my music or wanna buy my art, they're more likely to engage with my posts or purchase my work. And I found that out by accident. It didn't start out as like a marketing idea where I was like, "Oh, I bet if I just like talk to people online, they'll want to buy stuff from me." It was something where I was just like, "Oh, hey, I found somebody else that's making clothes. I'm going to share them to my stories." Or I did this, YouTube video called Past the Sewing Scissors, where I got a bunch of my designer friends. It was when everybody was doing those little makeup brush transition ones where you cover the screen and it's the next person, and you do a little makeover video. And we did that with like band t-shirts and fabric. And that was something where I kind of discovered like, oh, when I reached out and I supported all these other people, everybody collectively started to see all of us at the same time, and it was beneficial to all of us. And we made kind of like an unofficial little engagement squad where we all kind of support each other and try to hype each other up and give each other advice. So if you're doing something creative, the people around you doing the same things, they're not your competition, they're your peers and they're your support system. So, lean into that and become part of a community.
Yes, perfectly said. That's what I was thinking as you were talking this whole time was like it sounds like just a community aspect.
Yeah.
And focusing on community. It really does make a difference. It really does. And like you said, not as a strategy because I think people can feel when it's authentic and when it's when it's
Yeah.
not. Especially the people who make it blatantly obvious, like when they follow
Oh,
you
yeah.
on Instagram and then unfollow you just because they want to
Immediately,
try to
because they
get
think that
yeah,
you're gonna follow back. Yeah.
exactly.
Where you see those numbers go doot, 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 doot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, amazing. Definitely more solid advice there. So we're getting towards the end. So is there anything that you wish someone would ask you or that you'd like to talk about?
That was, like, the one question on there where I was like, "I don't really know." I mean, I guess I feel like probably, um I always like questions when people ask, like, how I do things or how they could do what they wanna do, and if it's something that I I have knowledge or expertise in or I can offer a resource. I like questions like that. Like, I love when people are like, "Hey, I found your YouTube channel and I made this," and they send me it and they're like, "How do you," or, "I was thinking about starting a shop, like, how did you do that?" So I always like things like that, especially because, like, I've leaned on other people in the past too for advice and things like that, so I just kinda like to return the favor.
That's beautiful. Well, you heard it here first. If you have questions, do not hesitate to reach out.
RIP to my DMs. No, I'm just kidding. I don't mind at all. I love that kinda talk,
Oh.
so I'm always happy to answer questions.
Aw, that's really, really amazing of you, especially with how busy you are. Um, so what are you looking forward to for yourself for the rest of the year?
Well, I finally just quit my day job, so I'm really excited about that. So the big thing that I'm excited about is being able to focus full time on being creative and not just like trying to cram it in at the end of a work day after, making dinner and taking my dogs out and then trying to do everything in 2 days on the weekend and just being able to like see how much more I can get done when I have an endless, or well, not endless, but, a full week of time every week to do what I wanna do. I'm excited about putting out new music with Dreadmyst and finishing our EP. I'm excited about some new projects that I have new ones that I can't talk about and I really want to. But I do have some big projects coming up this year. I'm excited about like trying to do more stage wear for bands and things like that. I'm excited about new music and I'm excited about, making new music videos and promo shoots with me and my husband's company. So yeah, just really excited about having more time to do what I really wanted to do and see how it blossoms.
That is amazing. Huge congrats. And you've obviously put in the work to make that happen to this point, and I'm excited for you. Like it's like you
Thank
said,
you.
just being yeah, having more time to do what you actually love. Oh, that's such a big deal, such a huge deal. And you couldn't have gotten here without everything that you've already done up to this point. So, really excited to see what else is coming through the rest of the year, including the secrets that we can't
Yes,
hear
yes.
today. Yeah,
Don't worry, it's all really fun stuff, and if you follow me on socials, I'm sure it'll pop up.
there we go. So, if you haven't already, definitely follow Kristen on Instagram, YouTube, all links in the description below. and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. You're
Of
amazing.
course. And if
Yeah,
anybody came from my Instagram stories, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe over at Jasmine's channel too.
thank you, much appreciated. And honestly, I can't say it enough. Super solid advice. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah,
So
me
thank you.
too. This is great. Thank you.
Yay! And I guess yeah. Before we sign off, anything you want to say to anyone in the chat or
Just
watch anyone watching?
just thanks to everyone that's supported me. Like it feels great to actually like have enough support to get to do this full time and really take the risk I've always wanted to do. So it means a lot.
Absolutely. And thank you, Corey, for saying thanks for a fun interview. And Ruby, I'll definitely follow. Love the interview. Awesome. Thank you all for engaging in the chat. Thank you again, Jeff
Thank
Jones,
you.
for the super chat. And thank you, Kristen. We'll be seeing you all in the future.
Goodbye, everyone.